The bullet tore through Kang Jae-won's side at exactly 11:47 p.m., and in that moment, the most powerful man in Seoul's underworld became nothing more than prey. His empire meant nothing. His billions meant nothing. His army of loyal soldiers meant nothing. Because his own blood, his own cousin, had sold him to his enemies, and now he was bleeding out in a filthy alley, crawling toward a light he prayed wasn't heaven's gates. He didn't know that light belonged to a woman who would change everything. He didn't know that in 10 minutes, he would be hiding in her bed while assassins searched for him outside her door. And he definitely didn't know that this woman, this stranger who had every reason to turn him in, would become the only person he would ever truly love. Now before we dive deeper into this intense story, make sure you hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell so you never miss an upload, and drop a like on this video right now. Trust me, you don't want to miss a single second of what happens next. This one is going to leave you breathless. The rain hammered Seoul streets like bullets from heaven. Blood mixed with water, swirling down the drain beside an overturned black Mercedes. Inside that wrecked vehicle, Kang Jae-won pressed his hand against the gunshot wound in his side, his Armani suit now soaked in crimson. His driver was dead. His bodyguards were scattered somewhere behind him, probably dead too. And the men hunting him were closing in fast. Jae-won had ruled Seoul's underworld for 5 years. The Kang Empire controlled everything from legitimate tech companies to the shadow markets that never slept. He had survived assassination attempts, hostile takeovers, and enemies who wanted his throne. But tonight, his own cousin had betrayed him. Lee Sung-ho had sold him out to the rival Hwang syndicate, and now Jae-won was bleeding out in some back alley in a neighborhood he didn't recognize. His vision blurred as he stumbled forward. The sound of car doors slamming echoed behind him. Flashlights cut through the rain. They were coming. He turned down another alley, then another. His expensive shoes slipped on wet garbage. Every breath felt like fire in his lungs. He needed to disappear. He needed somewhere to hide. He needed a miracle. The door appeared like a prayer answered. A small door at the back of an old apartment building, slightly ajar, light spilling from inside. Without thinking, Jae-won pushed through it and collapsed onto a floor covered in worn linoleum. The scream that greeted him was high-pitched and terrified. Who are you? Get out. Jae-won looked up through hazy eyes and saw her. A young black woman, maybe mid-20s, standing in what appeared to be a tiny studio apartment. She wore an oversized sweater and shorts, her natural hair wrapped in a silk scarf. She was holding a frying pan like a weapon, her dark eyes wide with fear. Please, Jae-won gasped, blood dripping onto her floor. Please help me. They're going to kill me. I'm calling the police. She reached for her phone on the counter. No. He grabbed her ankle weakly. No police. They own the police. Please. I'll pay you. I'll give you anything. Just hide me. Just for tonight. She should have kicked him. She should have screamed. She should have done anything except what she did next. Esther Hillary looked at the bleeding man on her kitchen floor, then at the door he'd come through. She could hear voices outside now, men shouting in Korean, getting closer. Something in this man's eyes made her hesitate. Desperation. Pain. And beneath it all, something that looked almost like sincerity. Bathroom, she hissed, grabbing his arm. Now. Move. She half-dragged him through her tiny apartment, his blood leaving a trail on the floor. She shoved him into her bathroom, pushed him into the tub, and yanked the shower curtain closed. Don't make a sound, she whispered. I mean it. Not a single sound. Jae-won nodded weakly, and she ran back to the main room. She grabbed paper towels and frantically wiped up the blood trail, her hands shaking. The knock on her door came just as she finished, hard and demanding. Open the door. Police business. Esther stuffed the bloody paper towels into her garbage and took a deep breath. She opened the door with the chain still on, peering through the gap with wide, innocent eyes. Two men stood there, and they definitely weren't police. They wore expensive suits and hard expressions. One had a scar running down his cheek. The other had eyes that made Esther's blood run cold. Yes? Can I help you? We're looking for someone, the scarred man said in heavily accented English. A man. Injured. Have you seen anyone? Esther shook her head, letting her accent thicken. No, no one. I've been inside all night. It's raining, you know. I heard some noise, but I thought it was just people fighting again. This neighborhood, you know how it is. The cold-eyed man studied her face. Esther forced herself to meet his gaze, her heart pounding so loud she was sure he could hear it. You are alone? He asked. Yes, just me. I'm a student. English teacher. I have classes tomorrow, so I was about to sleep. The two men exchanged glances. The cold-eyed one nodded slightly. If you see anything, call this number. He handed her a card through the gap. There is reward. A lot of money. Esther took the card with trembling fingers. Okay. Yes. I will. Thank you. They stared at her for another long moment before finally stepping back. Esther closed the door, locked it, and slid down to the floor, pressing her hand against her racing heart. What had she just done? She waited 5 full minutes before moving, listening for any sounds outside. When she was sure they were gone, she rushed to the bathroom and yanked back the shower curtain. Jae-won was unconscious, his face pale as death, his suit soaked in blood. For a horrible moment, Esther thought he was dead. Then she saw his chest rise slightly. Hey! She tapped his face. Hey, wake up. You can't die in my bathtub. Wake up. His eyes fluttered open. Even glazed with pain, they were striking. Dark, intense, with an intelligence that seemed to cut through his injury. Still alive, he murmured. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You're still bleeding. I need to look at that wound. You're a doctor? I'm a nursing student. She was already gathering supplies from her cabinet. Part-time. I'm mostly an English teacher. But I know enough to keep you from dying tonight. She helped him out of his jacket and shirt, her breath catching when she saw his torso. The wound was bad, a bullet grazed that had torn through his side. But that wasn't what caught her attention. It was the tattoo that covered his back and wrapped around his chest. A massive dragon, beautifully inked, surrounded by traditional Korean designs. Mafia. He was Mafia. She had let a gangster into her home. You should run, Jae-won said, reading her expression. You know what I am now. Then why aren't you threatening me, she asked, hands frozen on the antiseptic. Because you saved my life. I don't hurt people who help me. How noble for a criminal. A ghost of a smile crossed his pale lips. I prefer businessmen. Esther worked in silence, cleaning his wound and bandaging it as best she could. He needed stitches, probably antibiotics too, but that would have to wait. Every time she pressed too hard, she saw him grit his teeth, but he never made a sound. What's your name? He asked when she finished. Why do you want to know? Because I like to know the names of people who saved my life. It makes the gratitude feel more personal. She hesitated. Esther. Esther Hillary. Esther. He said it slowly, like he was tasting the syllables. That's beautiful. Nigerian? Yes. How did you know? I'm a businessman who works internationally. I know many things. He shifted slightly, wincing. My name is Kang Jae-won. The name hit her like a slap. She had heard it before. Everyone who lived in Seoul had heard it. Kang Jae-won. The Shadow King. The man who controlled half the city's underworld and a good portion of its legitimate business too. You're the Kang, she breathed. Just Jae-won is fine. We're past formalities. You've seen me shirtless. This isn't funny. Do you know what they'll do to me if they find out I helped you? They won't find out. I'm going to leave as soon as I can walk, and you'll never see me again. I promise. But as the night wore on, it became clear that Jae-won wasn't going anywhere. His wound had reopened during his escape, and he was too weak to stand. Esther couldn't risk taking him to a hospital, and she couldn't throw him out to die. So she did the only thing she could do. She let him sleep in her bed while she took the floor. This is temporary, she told him firmly as she helped him onto her small bed. One night. Tomorrow, you figure out how to leave without getting me killed. One night, he agreed. And then I'll disappear from your life forever. He was lying. They both knew it. The next morning, Esther woke to find Jae-won sitting up in her bed, typing on a phone she hadn't seen before. Where did that come from? She demanded. Emergency backup. I always have resources hidden around the city. He looked at her with those intense eyes. I need to ask you something. I'm not killing anyone for you. Nothing like that. He almost smiled. I need somewhere to hide for a few more days. Just until I can contact my people and figure out who I can trust. In exchange, I'll pay you more money than you've seen in your life. No. Esther. I said no. I helped you last night because I'm not a monster. But I can't have a mafia boss living in my apartment. I have a life. I have a job. I have a visa that I really can't afford to lose. Jae-won nodded slowly. I understand. Then I'll leave today. But let me give you something first. For your trouble. He typed something on his phone, then showed her the screen. It was a bank transfer notification. The number made Esther's knees go weak. That's 100 million won, he said. About 75,000 American dollars. It's yours. Whether I stay or go. I can't accept that. Why not? Because it's blood money. Because taking money from you makes me part of your world. Jae-won studied her for a long moment. Then he did something that surprised her. He laughed. It was weak and pained, but genuine. You're the strangest person I've ever met, he said. Most people would have sold me out for far less. You won't even take money you've earned. I didn't earn anything. I just didn't let you die. In my world, that's worth more than you know. He tried to stand and immediately collapsed back onto the bed, grimacing. The movement had reopened his wound. Fresh blood began seeping through the bandages. Esther swore under her breath and rushed to his side. Stop moving, you idiot. You're going to bleed out. I have to go. I can't put you in danger. You can't walk. You can barely sit up. She pushed him back down, changing his bandages with practiced efficiency. Fine. 3 days. You get 3 days to heal enough to walk. Then you're gone. Thank you, Esther. Don't thank me. I'm probably going to regret this. She was right. She regretted it almost immediately. Not because Jae-won was a bad houseguest. In fact, he was surprisingly considerate. He stayed quiet when she worked, helped her clean despite his injury, and never once tried to take advantage of their situation. No, she regretted it because she was starting to like him. On the second day, while she was changing his bandages, he asked about her life. Why Korea, he wanted to know. Why come all this way to teach English? Better opportunities, she said, not meeting his eyes. My father was sick. We needed money for his treatment. Teaching here pays better than anything I could find back home. Was sick. Is he better now? He passed away. 6 months ago. But I still have loans to pay off. And my younger brother needs help with university fees. Jae-won was quiet for a moment. You're supporting your whole family. Someone has to. And you came to a foreign country, work 2 jobs, live in a tiny apartment, all for them? They're my family. What else would I do? He looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. Something shifted in his eyes, something that made her stomach flutter. "You're remarkable," he said quietly. "Do you know that?" "Stop." She pulled away, focusing on packing up the first aid supplies. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Flirt with me. Charm me. Whatever it is you're doing. I'm not one of your women. I don't have any women. Please. I've seen the gossip sites. Kang Jae-won, Seoul's most eligible bachelor. A different model every month. All publicity. Business arrangements. I haven't been with anyone real in years." Esther scoffed. "Right. I'm serious." He caught her wrist gently, making her look at him. "I run an empire. I'm surrounded by enemies. Everyone wants something from me. Power, money, connections. You're the first person in years who looked at me and saw just a bleeding man who needed help. That doesn't mean anything. It means everything." She pulled away again, her heart racing. "Get some rest. I have to go to work." But his words stayed with her all day. While she taught English to bored teenagers. While she studied for her nursing exams. While she rode the crowded subway home. She couldn't stop thinking about him. About those eyes. About the way he looked at her like she was something precious. This was dangerous. This was so dangerous. When she got home, she found Jae-won in her kitchen, cooking. "What are you doing?" she exclaimed. "You're supposed to be resting." "I'm feeling better." "And you work too hard. Sit." He served her a perfect plate of japchae, beautifully prepared despite his injury. Esther stared at it, then at him. "You can cook." "I can do many things." He sat across from her, wincing slightly. "Eat. You need your strength." She took a bite, and her eyes went wide. "This is amazing. My mother taught me. Before she passed." His expression grew distant. "She was the only person in my family who wasn't corrupt. She used to say that cooking for someone was the sincerest form of love." "I'm sorry about your mother. It was a long time ago." He shook off the melancholy. "Tell me more about Nigeria. About your home." So she did. She told him about Lagos, about the chaos and beauty of it. About her grandmother's compound where she grew up. About festivals and food and the sound of rain on zinc roofs. She talked more than she had in months, maybe years, and he listened to every word like it was precious. "You miss it," he said when she finished. "Every day. But I can't go back. Not yet. Not until I've made enough to take care of my family properly." What if money wasn't a problem? What if you could go home tomorrow, buy your grandmother a new house, send your brother to any university he wanted? Esther laughed bitterly. "Then I would wake up. Because that's a dream. Dreams can become reality. With the right help." She looked at him sharply. "What are you saying?" "Nothing." He shook his head. "Not yet. Just wondering what your dreams look like." That night, Esther couldn't sleep. She lay on the floor, listening to Jae-won breathe in her bed, and wondered how her life had gotten so complicated. On the third day, everything changed. Esther came home from work to find her apartment door broken open. She ran inside, terrified, and found Jae-won gone. Blood stained the floor. Her furniture was overturned. And on her bed lay a note written in unfamiliar handwriting. "If you want to see him alive, come to the address below. Alone. Tell anyone, and he dies." For one crazy moment, Esther considered running. This wasn't her world. This wasn't her fight. She should go to the police, pack her things, and get on the first flight back to Nigeria. But she thought about Jae-won's eyes. About the way he'd laughed at her jokes. About the way he'd looked at her like she mattered. She grabbed her coat and went. Now, if you're enjoying this story so far, this is your reminder to hit that subscribe button, drop a comment telling me what you think will happen next, and share this video with someone who loves a good romance. Trust me, things are about to get intense. The address led her to a warehouse on the outskirts of Seoul. It looked abandoned, industrial, the kind of place where bad things happened and no one asked questions. Esther's hands shook as she approached the entrance. 2 guards grabbed her as soon as she stepped inside, patting her down roughly before shoving her forward. She was pushed into a large open space where maybe 20 men stood around, all armed, all dangerous. And in the center, tied to a chair, was Jae-won. He looked worse than before. Fresh blood covered his face. His shirt was torn. But when he saw her, his eyes went wide with something that looked like horror. Esther. No. Why did you come? Isn't that sweet, a voice drawled. A man stepped forward from the shadows. He was tall, handsome in a cold way, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Esther's rent for a year. The little foreign girlfriend came to save her Mafia prince. Lee Sung-ho, Jae-won spat. You coward. You betray me and then kidnap civilians? So this was the cousin. The traitor. Esther studied him, memorizing every detail of his face. She's not a civilian, Sung-ho said, circling Esther like a shark. Not anymore. She's been harboring a fugitive. In some countries, that's a death sentence. She didn't know who I was. Let her go. Your problem is with me. Oh, I know. And trust me, I'm going to enjoy solving that problem. Sung-ho stopped in front of Esther, tilting her chin up with one finger. Pretty thing, isn't she? I can see why you liked her. Maybe I'll keep her after you're dead. A little trophy. Touch her and I'll kill you, Jae-won growled. Even if I have to come back from hell to do it. Sung-ho laughed. You're tied to a chair, cousin. You're not killing anyone. You don't know me as well as you think. Something in Jae-won's voice made Sung-ho pause. He looked at his cousin more closely, and his smile faltered. That's when the explosion started. The warehouse doors blew inward. Men in black tactical gear poured through, weapons raised. Gunfire erupted. Sung-ho's men scrambled for cover, but they were outmatched. Outnumbered. Outplanned. In the chaos, Esther saw Jae-won wrench free of his ropes. How, she didn't know. She didn't have time to wonder. He grabbed her hand and pulled her down behind a pile of crates. Are you okay? He demanded, running his hands over her, checking for injuries. I'm fine. What's happening? My people. My real people. His eyes were cold now, harder than she'd ever seen them. I wasn't just sitting around these past 3 days. I was planning. You knew this would happen? I suspected. Sung-ho was always impatient. I knew he'd come for me eventually, and I knew he'd use you as bait. I'm sorry, Esther. I'm sorry I put you in danger. You can apologize later. Right now, we need to get out of here. They moved through the chaos, Jae-won shielding her with his body. He grabbed a gun from a fallen guard and began clearing a path with efficient, terrifying skill. This was the real Kang Jae-won, Esther realized. Not the wounded man who cooked her dinner. Not the charming flirt who asked about her dreams. This was the predator. The king. And somehow, that didn't scare her as much as it should have. They made it outside, where a black SUV was waiting. Jae-won pushed her inside and climbed in after her. The vehicle peeled away just as more gunfire erupted behind them. You planned all of this, Esther breathed. You used yourself as bait. I used myself as bait, he confirmed. But I never planned for you to be there. You were supposed to stay safe. Why did you come? I don't know. I saw the note and I just... She trailed off, unable to explain. Jae-won was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached out and took her hand, his grip gentle now. You're either the bravest person I've ever met, he said, or the most foolish. Probably both. He smiled, and something in Esther's chest cracked open. They drove to a penthouse apartment in the most expensive part of Seoul. Armed guards were everywhere, but they all bowed to Jae-won as he passed. He led Esther inside, into an apartment that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the glittering city below. Everything was sleek, modern, expensive. "This is my real home," Jae-won said. "You'll be safe here." "Safe? Your cousin is still out there." "Not for long." His expression darkened. "Tonight ends it. My men are hunting him down as we speak. By morning, Lee Sung-ho will be nothing but a memory." "You're going to kill him?" "Yes." Esther should have been horrified. She should have run screaming from this man and his world of violence and death. Instead, she found herself remembering Sung-ho's hands on her chin, his threats, the cruel smile on his face. "Good," she said quietly. Jae-won looked at her with something like wonder. "You're not afraid of me." "I'm terrified of you. But I'm more terrified of what would happen if men like him won." He crossed the room to her, moving slowly, giving her time to retreat. She didn't. He stopped inches away, looking down at her with those intense eyes. "I told you I would leave your life forever," he said. "I told you that you would never see me again. But I can't do that now. I don't want to do that." "Why?" "Because somewhere between bleeding on your floor and watching you walk into danger for me, I fell in love with you." Esther's heart stopped. Started again. Raced like it was trying to escape her chest. "You don't even know me. I know you're kind when you have every reason not to be. I know you're brave when most people would run. I know you put your family before yourself. I know you make me laugh. I know that when you smile, I forget about everything dark in my life." He cupped her face in his hands. "I know that I want to spend the rest of my life learning everything else. This is crazy. My whole life is crazy. But you make it feel sane." He kissed her then, soft and gentle, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. Esther melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, grew urgent. Years of loneliness, of sacrifice, of pretending she didn't need love, all of it crumbled away. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. "Stay with me," Jae-won whispered. "Not because I saved you or you saved me. Stay because you want to. Stay because this is real. Your world is dangerous. I'll protect you. I'll protect your family. I'll give you everything you've ever dreamed of and things you haven't even imagined yet. I don't want your money. I know. That's why I want to give you everything." Esther looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity there. The vulnerability. This man, who controlled an empire, was laying himself bare before her. Risking rejection. Risking heartbreak. "Okay," she said softly. "Okay. I'll stay." His smile was like sunrise. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. True to his word, Jae-won's men captured Sung-ho within days. The traitor was dealt with, quietly, in a way that Esther didn't ask about. She didn't want to know the details. She only knew that the threat was gone. Meanwhile, Jae-won began spoiling her in ways she couldn't comprehend. He paid off all her loans. He bought her grandmother a new house in Lagos. He paid for her brother's university fees in full. When Esther tried to protest, he simply smiled and said, "You saved my life. Let me save yours." He moved her out of her tiny apartment and into his penthouse. He introduced her to his inner circle, the handful of people he truly trusted. He took her shopping for clothes she'd never dreamed of wearing. He flew her to Paris for dinner, just because she mentioned she'd always wanted to see the Eiffel Tower. But the most meaningful moments were the quiet ones. Cooking together in his massive kitchen. Watching Korean dramas while she taught him Nigerian slang. Falling asleep in each other's arms, safe and warm. "I keep waiting for the catch," Esther told him one night as they lay tangled together in silk sheets. There is no catch. There's always a catch. Men like you don't fall for women like me. Jae-won propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at her seriously. Women like you? What does that mean? Ordinary. Foreign. Poor. You are the furthest thing from ordinary I have ever encountered. Your foreignness makes you fascinating. And you were never poor, Esther. You were just surrounded by people who couldn't see your worth. He kissed her forehead. I see it. I will always see it. She pulled him down and kissed him properly, pouring all her feelings into it. But their happiness was not to last undisturbed. 3 months into their relationship, a new threat emerged. The Hwang syndicate, who had helped Sung-ho in his betrayal, were not pleased that their plan had failed. They wanted revenge. And they had found a new way to get it. Esther was walking home from her weekly language exchange meeting when the car pulled up beside her. Men grabbed her before she could scream, shoving her into the back seat. A needle bit into her neck, and everything went black. She woke in a cold room, hands bound, head pounding. A man sat across from her, older, distinguished, with cruel eyes. Miss Hillary, he said. I'm Hwang Min-jun. I believe you're acquainted with my organization. What do you want? What everyone wants from Kang Jae-won. Power. Control. And now, thanks to you, leverage. Esther's blood ran cold. He'll kill you for this. Perhaps. But first, he'll do whatever I say to keep you alive. Funny, isn't it? The great Kang, brought low by a foreign woman. Hwang leaned forward. They say he's obsessed with you. That he's never loved anyone this way. Is it true? Esther said nothing. Your silence tells me everything. Hwang smiled. Don't worry. I have no intention of killing you. You're far too valuable for that. But I might have to hurt you a little. Just to motivate our friend. He snapped his fingers, and a guard stepped forward with a knife. Miles away, Jae-won received a video on his phone. He watched Esther, bound and bleeding from a cut on her cheek, staring defiantly at the camera. Hwang's voice echoed in the background. You have 24 hours to surrender yourself. Come to the coordinates I'm sending alone, unarmed, and she lives. Bring anyone, try anything clever, and I'll send her back to you piece by piece. The phone shattered in Jae-won's grip. His second-in-command, a man named Park Jin-ho, stepped forward cautiously. Sir, we need to think about this carefully. Hwang is setting a trap. I know it's a trap. Then we need a plan. We need time. There is no time. He has Esther. Sir, with respect, you can't just walk into enemy territory alone. You'll both die. Jae-won turned to face Jin-ho, and the look in his eyes made the hardened lieutenant take a step back. I would burn this entire city to the ground for her, Jae-won said quietly. I would kill everyone who ever looked at Hwang with anything less than hatred. I would tear apart the heavens and drag demons from hell if that's what it took to bring her home safe. He paused. But I am not going alone. And I am not going unarmed. Then what's the plan? Jae-won smiled, and it was terrible to behold. Hwang thinks he knows me. He thinks love has made me weak. He's about to learn how wrong he is. The next 12 hours were a masterclass in controlled chaos. Jae-won mobilized every resource at his disposal. He called in favors from allies across Asia. He bribed officials, threatened rivals, and coordinated an assault that would have made military generals weep with envy. Meanwhile, Esther sat in her cold prison, refusing to show fear. When Hwang came to gloat, she spat in his face. When his guards hit her for it, she laughed. He's coming, she said. And when he gets here, you're going to wish you'd never been born. Such loyalty, Hwang mused, wiping his face. What did he do to earn it? He saw me. He really saw me. That's more than you could ever understand. Hwang's expression flickered with something that might have been uncertainty. But he buried it quickly. We'll see how loyal you remain when he walks in here and surrenders himself for execution. You don't know him at all. Exactly on schedule, Jae-won appeared at the coordinates. Alone. Hands raised. Just as demanded. Hwang's men swarmed him, patting him down, finding nothing. They dragged him inside, to the same room where Esther was being held. When she saw him, her heart broke and soared at the same time. Jae-won, no. Why did you come? Because you're my heart, he said simply. And I don't know how to live without my heart. Hwang laughed, spreading his arms wide. How touching. The mighty Kong, brought to his knees by love. Your father must be rolling in his grave. My father was a monster, Jae-won said calmly. His grave can rot for all I care. And yet you followed in his footsteps. I chose a different path. But you're right, there's one thing my father taught me that I never forgot. Jae-won smiled slightly. Never walk into a trap you can't escape from. The lights went out. Gunfire erupted. Explosions shook the building. When the emergency lights flickered on, Jae-won was already moving. He'd pulled a knife from somewhere, using it with deadly precision against the confused guards. Esther watched in amazement as Jae-won's men poured into the building from every direction. The trap had been sprung, but not on Jae-won. On Hwang. In the chaos, Hwang tried to run. Jae-won caught him by the throat, slamming him against the wall. You touched her, Jae-won said, his voice barely a whisper. You made her bleed. Wait, please, we can make a deal. There are no deals. There is no mercy. There is only payment. Jae-won leaned close. And you're going to pay for a very, very long time. What happened next, Esther turned away from. She didn't need to see it. She didn't want to see it. She only heard Hwang's screams, and then silence. Jae-won came to her, cutting her bonds with gentle hands. Blood spattered his face and clothes, but his touch was soft as silk. It's over, he said. I've got you. You're safe. Esther collapsed into his arms, sobbing. I knew you'd come. I knew it. Always. I will always come for you. No matter where you are, no matter who takes you, I will find you. I will save you. And I will destroy anyone who dares to hurt you. That's kind of scary. I know. Is it too much? She looked up at him, at this man who had walked into a trap for her, who had moved heaven and earth to bring her home. It's exactly right, she said. 6 months later, Esther stood on a beach in the Maldives, the sunset painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. She wore a white dress that cost more than her old apartment. Diamonds glittered at her throat, a gift from Jae-won. But none of that mattered as much as the man waiting for her at the end of the aisle. Their wedding was small, intimate. Just close friends and family. Esther's brother had flown in from Nigeria, along with her grandmother and aunts. Jae-won's inner circle stood as witnesses. A pastor from Esther's church officiated. As she walked toward Jae-won, Esther thought about the journey that had brought her here. A rainy night. A bleeding stranger. A choice that had changed everything. You look like a dream, Jae-won said when she reached him. You clean up pretty well yourself. I love you, Esther Hillary. From the moment you pointed that frying pan at me, I think I started falling. I love you too, Kang Jae-won. Even though you're stubborn and dangerous and way too dramatic. Dramatic? He pressed a hand to his heart. I don't know what you mean. They exchanged vows. They exchanged rings. And when the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, Jae-won kissed her like she was the only person in the world. The reception was beautiful, a fusion of Korean and Nigerian traditions. Esther's family danced with Jae-won's men. Traditional dishes from both cultures filled the tables. Music played, champagne flowed, and for one perfect night, the shadows of the underworld seemed very far away. Later, alone in their honeymoon suite, Jae-won presented Esther with a gift. What is this? She asked, opening the envelope. The deed to an orphanage in Lagos. Fully funded for the next 50 years. I also established a scholarship fund in your father's name for Nigerian students who want to study medicine abroad. Esther stared at him, tears streaming down her face. You asked me once what you could do to repay me for saving your life, Jae-won continued. But you had it backwards. You saved me. You gave me something to live for. You showed me that love doesn't make you weak. It makes you invincible. He took her hands. Everything I have, everything I am, is yours. Forever. Esther kissed him fiercely, pulling him close. Take me to bed, she whispered. I want to start forever right now. He obliged. The years that followed were not always easy. Jae-won's world was still dangerous, still complicated. But together, they faced every challenge. They had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, who grew up knowing both Korean and Igbo, who ate kimchi jjigae and jollof rice with equal enthusiasm, who called their grandmother in Lagos every Sunday. Esther eventually finished her nursing degree and opened a clinic in Seoul that served immigrant communities, treating patients regardless of their ability to pay. Jae-won funded it, of course, but the vision was all hers. And Jae-won, the feared Mafia CEO, was transformed by love. He didn't leave his world entirely, but he changed it. He turned the Kong Empire toward more legitimate ventures, using his power to protect the vulnerable instead of exploiting them. His children knew him not as a king of shadows, but as a father who never missed a school play, who coached soccer on weekends, who held their mother like she was precious every single day. On their 10th anniversary, they returned to that tiny apartment where they'd first met. It had been renovated now, part of a housing project that Jae-won funded for foreign workers in Seoul. It's smaller than I remembered, Jae-won said. It was always small. You were just too busy bleeding to notice. He laughed, pulling her close. Best thing that ever happened to me, bleeding on that floor. For me too. She leaned into him. Who knew that helping a stranger would change my whole life? It's like my mother used to say. Kindness is never wasted. It always finds its way back to you. She sounds like she was wise. She was. She would have loved you. They stood in silence for a moment, remembering. Then Esther smiled. Come on. Our kids are waiting. And you promised to take them for ice cream. I did. I suppose we shouldn't disappoint them. You've never disappointed anyone in your life. Jae-won kissed her forehead. Only because you're there to keep me on track. They walked out together, hand in hand, into the future they'd built. A future that started with a kindness. A future that blossomed into love. A future that proved, once and for all, that the most powerful force in any world, even the dark world of mafia kings and shadow empires, was a heart brave enough to hope. And that, dear listeners, is where our story ends. But remember, the greatest love stories never really end. They just keep growing, changing, becoming something more beautiful with every passing day. If this story touched your heart, I need you to do something right now. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Drop a comment telling me your favorite moment from today's story. Was it when Esther first saved Jae-won? When he walked into the trap for her? That beautiful wedding scene? Let me know in the comments below. And please, share this video with someone who needs to hear a story about love conquering all. Share it with someone who needs hope. Share it with someone who believes that kindness matters. Until next time, this is your host from the Afro-Korean channel, reminding you that love is always worth the risk. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll see you in the next video.